Hey everybody, Andy Kvernen here with another Cornerstone Connection daily devotional. Let me describe for you a typical situation in the Kvernen house. We might sit down for dinner and we get into a conversation and we're maybe having a good time and going about just talking about the things of the day, the people that we've encountered and whatnot. And sometimes what happens is I'll make a comment that comes off a bit judgmental, maybe a lot, who knows. But my kids, they sort of perk up, and they're teenagers, they're sharp, right? They're with it, and they perk up and they go, "Dad, you said in your sermon this, but then you just said that. How does that jive?" And probably they're a little more punishing in how they say it. "Dad, what gives? You're not practicing what you preach." And the reality is that I should know better in those moments, but I'm humbled by my kids who are instructing me with what I've already taught them. And the people that they maybe have more excuse not to know better, my kids, they're less experienced, they've been around the Word less, they didn't preach that sermon just last week, right? They're the ones that actually get it. And there's this narrative in the Gospel of Mark where Jesus has been revealing himself since the very beginning. He's baptized and the Father descends on him as a spirit, like a dove, and says, "This is my Son with whom I'm well pleased." And then Jesus does these miracles that demonstrate his power and his authority. He calms the winds and the waves, and the disciples are there the whole time, and they're seeing this happen. And eventually Jesus says, who do you say that I am? Other people say this, but who do you say? And Peter recognizes you're the Messiah, and yet he doesn't understand the full implications, because as Jesus then begins to do the work of the Messiah, which is to go to Jerusalem to offer himself as a ransom for many, to suffer and to die, Peter repeatedly tries to stop him, and Jesus has to say, "Look, no, Peter, you don't get it." And even in the end, Jesus is about to be tried and crucified, and Peter then denies him. He still doesn't understand, though he should have. He was there during all the sermons. He was there during all the miracles. He should have gotten it, and yet he didn't. And here at the crucifixion scene, which is where we find ourselves in Mark 15, we see that the disciples are scattered. They're afraid, and they're acting like they didn't know what was to come, even though Jesus predicted it 3 times. "I'm going to suffer and I'm going to die. You guys need to be ready for this." The disciples, they didn't understand. They didn't get it. And so they've scattered. But in this beautifully confounding way, just as Jesus breathes his last, we pick this up in Mark chapter 15, verses 38 and 39. It says, "The curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom." In other words, the gospel, the way of God, the opportunity to know God and to commune with God, to enter into the Holy of Holies, is no longer separated by a curtain in an Israelite temple. Now that way has been opened to all who would believe. But listen who's on the other side. This is so cool. Verse 38, "And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And when the centurion who stood there in front of Jesus saw how he died, he said, 'Surely this man was the Son of God.'" Friends, it wasn't Peter, it wasn't John or James, it wasn't even the women there who followed with Jesus that make this recognition. It's a centurion. It's a Roman soldier. In fact, a Roman leader of soldiers. The last person that you would ever think would recognize the true identity and purpose of Jesus. And here he is, and he's saying, "Surely this man was the Son of God." Friends, sometimes God uses those with less experience. We might call them fools, although we don't mean that pejoratively. But God uses those who shouldn't know to demonstrate to those who should, hey, this is what's up. Friends, may you and I be humble today as we encounter other people, as we listen to God's Word, and as we encounter what God is doing, may we be open to the fact that God may use the simple to confound the wise, and may we be receptive, and may we do as the disciples eventually did, realize our mistake, realize our apathy, our ignorance, our sin even, and then come back to Jesus in full force. Friends, God bless you. Have a great day, and may God be glorified in all of us today. See you soon.